Just so you know, by the way, this is absolutely some sort of manipulation, a psychological operation that is happening right before our very eyes. And rest assured that every single person who is involved knows what they are doing. I'm Jasmine Lane. Be sure to subscribe, follow, like, and comment your thoughts down below. We're going to be talking about the English debates, media insanity, Mark Carney's fatal error, and so much more, really, today on Over Opinionated. First, though, here is Pierre Poilievre, who made an epic announcement earlier today.
Conservatives will bring change. We will axe the Liberal food packaging tax to save families $400 on groceries and to save 60,000 Canadians their jobs. We will repeal the federal plastics ban, including the ban on plastic straws, checkout bags, food containers, and cutlery, because consumers and businesses should be free to choose what works best for them.
That alone may have just won him the election. The thing I hate most about reusable bags is that they actually aren't reusable for anything at all. Plastic bags, on the other hand, you could use those to line your garbage, pick up your dog waste, and all sorts of other things. But reusable ones, yeah, they don't really work the same in comparison. Also, this is quite notable too, because plastic straws in particular were really targeted after there was that viral video of the turtle with a straw stuck up its nose, and it was terrible. And of course, there's a lot of single-use plastics that can have much more harmful effects when it comes to ocean life if they are discarded and they end up in the ocean, which a lot of it does. But fun fact, plastic straws alone account for 1% of ocean plastics right now.
It's right on the government website. The law would require grocery stores to get rid of 75% of food packaging by 2026 and 95% by 2028. Now, there's a reason grocery stores use plastic to protect and store food. And let me quote the government's own website on why that is. Plastic has become the most common material for food packaging, primarily because of its purported ability to reduce food loss and waste. It is inexpensive, lightweight, and flexible, suitable to meet product specifications such as heat and tear resistance. The Liberal proposal will end this convenience and add costs. It will force stores to replace inexpensive, lightweight, and flexible packaging with more expensive, heavier, and less convenient alternatives. The effects are predictable. According to the Canadian Produce Marketing Association, these are people who actually sell food, it will increase produce prices by 34%, reduce shelf life for some products by up to 87%, and cause 50% more food waste. Food in the garbage rather than in the fridge. 87% reduction in shelf life for food.
Ideology over what actually works has certainly grabbed hold in this country. And again, it just points me back to Mark Carney and the Liberals. Their whole thing is not necessarily to do what works, what is proven and effective in terms of reducing waste, in terms of reducing cost. It is to implement more control. And while they frequently use compassion as some sort of a guilt trip weapon, because you're so virtuous if you believe in all of these things that we want you to do, that's going to change everything for you so very much, even though it's changing things that are not needing to be changed in this country for the better. Certainly, Blanchette last night during the English debate definitely called out Mr. Carney for his hypocrisy.
You have been the manager of Brookfield. It's supposed to be a green investment fund. But we now know that 50% of the investments of Brookfield is in fossil fuel. It's not so green. You seem to want to support oil and gas industry. That's interesting. You want to support prefab housing, and it's also in the investments of Brookfield, but not in Canada. You want to support nuclear power, smaller reactors, which are more dangerous, by the way, and Brookfield has investments in Westinghouse. You have hidden the money of Brookfield in Bermuda and Cayman Island, $30 billion. Billions of dollars lost for Canada. You are having your taxes being paid by families, workers, elders in Canada and Quebec instead of paying your own taxes. So I want to know, will you, before the election, reveal all the details of your assets, as Mr. Singh has done, as Mr. Poilievre has done, and as I have done? We have a right to know under those circumstances.
Let's let him answer.
Well, the first thing is always acted with integrity. Served the shareholders of Brookfield when I was there. I have left that. I have followed all the rules well in advance.
So let's
I have followed
reveal
all
your
the
assets.
rules well in advance.
Let's reveal your assets like we all did.
And working for the people of Canada.
What do you own? Why don't you tell Canadians and Quebecers what you own?
But of course, Mr. Carney will not do that. And, you know, you could say devil's advocate at the very least. Simply because he's being silent doesn't mean that there's anything massive that's going to be exposed. But past history kind of makes that one a little void. And also, it really is just the simplest thing called transparency. And if you really want people to trust you and you really want to be here for Canadians, you would think that it would be in your best interest to come clean, prove what you're saying, versus knowing that you can win this election before having to do that. And the Liberal government as a whole, in terms of anything that's actually been beneficial for Canadians, all they have done is just added more regulations, you know, and in terms of food, even, we have Toronto and Mississauga have declared food insecurity emergencies. And rather than the Liberal government doing something to help them, they have proposed a new regulation for food packaging. So the fact that not only did Poilievre say he was going to repeal that, he also said he was going to bring back plastic bags and plastic straws. Ugh. My vote was already secured, but that one certainly helped.
On June 3rd of 2021, you said that inflation would be a sign of economic progress. And you advised governments, including Justin Trudeau's, your Liberal government, to print money, which led to the worst inflation crisis in a generation. Now, that means that mothers went to bed with empty fridges and empty bank accounts, worried how they'd feed their kids, that seniors worried they'd be evicted from their homes, that young people believed they'd never be able to own a home in the first place. Now, in retrospect, that you look back on the Liberal decisions that you advised Justin Trudeau to take, will you look at the camera in the eye and apologize to the many people who suffered as a result of the inflationary policies that you advised Justin Trudeau to implement?
You know, I said earlier, but I'm going to say it again. I know you want to be running against Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau isn't here.
Are you denying you were his economic advisor?
I did not provide any of that advice. I did not provide any of that advice.
It's on the Liberal Party website.
I'm sorry.
Are you accusing your Liberal Party of lying about your role? Because it says today you can go to the Liberal Party website now, and it says that you were Justin Trudeau's economic advisor.
The way you judge our dollar was at parity. That is the kind of success that I can deliver for this country coming out of this crisis. And what is at stake here?
You were the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau that gave us the worst inflation that we have had in a generation, because the policies that you implemented and those of the MPs that are still in your ministry.
To the
fellow Canadians,
crisis which
the last 10 years has been about the Liberals. The next 10 years should be about you.
And on that note, by the way, Poilievre received yet another glowing endorsement from Stephen Harper. Here's what he had to say.
I led Canada through the global financial crisis. Today, we also face big challenges from the Trump administration and the performance of our own economy. The two men running to lead us both once worked for me, and my choice unequivocally is Pierre Poilievre. Only Pierre is putting forward an actual plan to make life affordable, make our streets safer, and put us in a strong position in dealing with the U.S. Only Pierre will bring change.
This makes no sense at all. It's not based in reality. It's based in fear.
America is divided. This will make them weaker with time. We are uniting. This will make us stronger. We can give ourselves so much more than the Americans can ever take away. So it's time to chart our own path to realize our own potential, to build Canada strong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say it. Canada is not united. In fact, there was no greater signal to how divided we are than what happened last night. Pre and post debates with the media teams there. I'm not going to get into a ton of detail with it. You can find the information online if you're interested. I'll just be frank, though. I mean, I think it was very unbecoming for absolutely everybody involved. And it's quite disappointing that Poilievre goes and has this incredible debate against Mark Carney, where there was really nothing that the media could get him on. And then lo and behold, this happens and it takes over everything as the main story. Overall, though, there was some back and forth that got very heated amongst independent journalists and mainstream journalists and reporters, including kind of, it seemed as though it was instigated initially by a reporter from the Hill Times, who actually just finished writing an article that included me in it. And it was a very well written, well balanced article, I thought. But anyway, it was a loss for literally everybody. And it's just crazy that that happened mere hours ago. And then Mark Carney's, oh, we're so united. America's divided. Buddy, you brought American-style politics into Canada very quickly, despite always saying that that's what the Conservatives are doing. The division of us versus them in this country is absolutely outrageous, and you can hear it right here, courtesy of the CBC.
Just so people understand, there are a series of police officers stationed behind us to make sure that we remain safe and that the media get out safely. They were not altercations between journalists inside the media room, and there was no altercation between journalists that happened on David's set. These were right-wing people that publish their own agenda and websites who confronted journalists inside the media center, who confronted David on his set, who directly and personally confronted me inside the media center. These are people that the commission decided to accredit, and that is where we are now. The situation deteriorated quickly in terms of how those people were behaving inside a professional media center where you were supposed to be doing your job. And that has left us with no scrums.
I really did have such a pit in my stomach watching live as CBC was revealing this story to the public and how they were talking about it, because it was so misleading and it was so not accurate either, because there is video footage that was initially posted on X showing exactly what happened. And it was not anything at all of these right-wing people who were trying to attack anybody else. That is absolutely false, based on the evidence that I have seen at the very least. What I did hear from contacts of mine who were on the inside, and take that as you will, it's obviously hearsay because I was not there. I didn't see any of that. But what I did hear is the reason why there was a security parameter around the CBC wasn't because anybody was in any danger at all. It was because Rosemary Barton and David Cochrane requested security after Ezra Levant had gone up to them to correct them because they had been saying things that were not true about Rebel News. And they essentially told him, we don't care what you have to say, get out of here. And he did. And then afterwards, they said that they didn't feel safe and they requested security and decided to make the entire broadcast about that and about smearing people who have a different point of view than they do. I don't know about you, but that certainly does not sound like you are very united. And let's go a little bit deeper in highlighting that. This video from their private podcast made the rounds on social media. I wonder why it is that liberals always want to ban free speech and they want to ban certain social media platforms for their misinformation. Alrighty then. But there's actually a lot of very familiar faces on this one. And what they had to say was filthy. I don't know how else to describe it. It made me feel ill. Truly it did. I do not like hearing people talk about each other like this. I do not like the narrative, the tone, any of that. It is so unbecoming. It is so unnecessary. And it is such a distraction from the real evils that we face, the real importance of this election. And it was just nasty. That's probably the best way that I could say that.
Well, then let's do it. Okay. These guys, these right-wing incel wipes, them over and over and over again. This is an election campaign, and they seized the weakness of Michelle Cormier and the commission to turn last night into a clown show. Right. First of all, they start goading people. Cormier and the commission, of course, allow Ezra, an arsonist, into the room, and then they give him a nice bunch of kindling and a match. And, they get into an argument with them. That allows them to tape everything. And then we, Corey, myself, Kathleen, we're all kicked out of. They just said their reaction is, all right, well, we're going to lock down the media filing room, which is where we were supposed to watch it. So they're like, okay, we're going to kick everybody out. That way it will maintain some integrity in this room. So they kick us out, but they leave the in. And then it just turns into complete pandemonium where they start harassing media, even as like the crew, like just regular workaday Joes are trying to remove the material. These guys are filming it, antagonizing them, provoking them. And then when people say, hey, get the out of the way, they run to the police literally and say, I've been assaulted. Why won't you arrest them? That can menzoid all over the place. And then it was so bad that the CBC crew, like literally Dave Cochran and Rosie Barton, had to be escorted by security because all these incel assholes were waiting for them. And they literally the police were concerned for their physical security. Like, these guys disrupted a democratic exercise. They delighted in it. They filmed it. They raised money off of it. And Michelle Cormier and the commission invited it all, melted down when it occurred, and had no plan, no ability, and no wit to try to manage it. It was just a complete.
Very, very important to note that according to video footage, it was not actually anything at all to do with Rebel News or Ezra or any of those people initially. They got into it after this Hill Times reporter started berating them. I will agree, though, I'm not a fan of people who just record absolutely everything. I understand it. But when this conversation started, it was not intense. And then all of a sudden, people started recording it. And of course, those who were recording it was, in fact, the individual having the conversation who was not from Rebel News, and then there was also individuals from Rebel News who started filming it as well. I think this was a failure on absolutely everybody's part. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion. I don't really care. I'm standing by it. I do not like when stuff like this happens. I think absolutely everybody acted in bad faith. They acted with entitlement. They acted with their egos, and I dislike that, period. Obviously, this recount of events was very graphic, very angry, very one-sided. However, it's not the full story. There are some details in there that are wrong. And overall, it was a loss. It was an absolute loss for absolutely everybody, no matter who started it. It doesn't matter who started it. Everybody else involved had the opportunity to leave the room, to make the situation die down. But I feel like everybody involved acted with poor character here.
The Montreal police are here putting up caution tape, escorting people out. And the leaders of Canada's 4 parties who were able to participate in this debate, because they, what was the phrase? Didn't feel they could provide or guarantee a proper environment. They're not going to take questions from journalists. And look, I know not everybody thinks it's all about us, but it is an important part of the ritual of elections and democracies and accountability. And it is part of the stress test that these leaders go through as they seek to lead this country, and spend your tax revenue and make laws, and some serious things being discussed there tonight about criminal justice and using the notwithstanding clause. These are all things that require a serious and mature debate, not financially motivated stunts.
I mean, one could argue that exactly the drama that they are certainly playing off of with this situation in order to smear conservatives could be a financially motivated stunt. I'm just going to throw that out there. And also, you know, there's plenty of independent media outlets that I don't consume because I don't like how they go about things, and I don't find them to be very respectable in their approach or in how they treat people. And that's up for people to decide, though, right? So, you know, if you're going to have a Hill Times reporter going after them for the fact that they are there, they're there, okay? They got their acceptance to be there. That's that. Just, it's okay, cool. You're mad about it? Tough luck, you know? And then, of course, things escalate the way that they do, and they get absolutely blown up on social media. You have CBC doing a freaking 2-hour-long broadcast about it, still talking about it today. Everybody is in that, not really to share the news. And again, in terms of the question, this is such a serious time. It's not about us. It's a serious time. Well, we already know that the CBC and all of those other places are probably just going to ask questions that are very lackluster. They're very boring. They're not actually journalistic in terms of trying to get to the bottom of something. So, you know, to have independent media there, whether you like them or not. And as I said, there's lots of people out there who I don't personally align with much, therefore I don't consume their content. But nonetheless, they represent a portion of the population, and nonetheless, they were there. They had the right to ask those questions, and they should not have been scrutinized by legacy media for simply showing up there to do their jobs. And again, as far as the video footage shows, it was not them who started going after everybody out of the blue. That's not what happened, and you can find those videos online. There is so much more to unpack from everything that took place over the last 48 hours, but I'm trying to keep this time sensitive, so I will close out with this one. And wow, did Mark Carney ever walk into a trap? And I think it's quite fascinating, actually. You know what? I'll save that. Let's just watch this clip.
Since you've had the opportunity to get your top secret security clearance and you've refused, why?
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the secret security clearance briefings, that I would be gagged under the security law, and I could be prosecuted if I spoke freely about matters of foreign interference. Now, given that Canada has experienced Chinese interference by Beijing, the government of China, in 2 consecutive elections, I needed to do my job to speak freely without fear of prosecution. And that was not something I would be allowed to do. Even Thomas Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, said that when he was the leader of the opposition, he never would have accepted the kind of gag order that your government and Mr. Trudeau's government was attempting to impose on me. And it's good that I'd made that decision, because it has allowed me to speak freely about things like the case where one of your candidates, sir, actually said that he wanted to send a political opponent to China under a bounty threatening his life or imprisonment, and you refused to get rid of him. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that you went to China not long ago to get a $250 million loan for your company. But the reality is, you refused to stand up for a Canadian who was being threatened by a foreign government, and I was able to speak freely on that matter because I refused the gag order that the Liberal government attempted to impose on me.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things. I think people at home have seen a robust debate here, and it's been a robust campaign, and it has not stopped Mr. Blanchet or Mr. Singh at times during his campaign by making challenges with respect to these issues.
The thing about this that is so shocking and honestly kind of eye-opening is the fact that Mark Carney and his team thought this was a good question to ask. And it leaves you wondering, are they actually that dense where they didn't know exactly how Poilievre would answer this because he has been questioned about it so many times? Did they think he would slip up? Did they think there was something they could get him on for a question that he has been answering and fact-checking for months since it became a talking point? And instead of maybe pressing him on something else, they chose to use this same regurgitated talking point that has been disproven and debunked so many times. And that's very eye-opening. as to what it is that they actually have on Poilievre, because they have nothing. And the way that he was able to spin that back goes to show exactly how people like that operate, where they are so entrenched that they don't even recognize the reality that they are living.